My first guest is someone who's very close to me. His name is Andrew Murray Dunn. And Andrew is not only a friend, but he's a warrior who's fighting for us in the ongoing war for our attention. In this first episode, Andrew and I are going to turn to the unhealthy relationship that many of us have with social media and our phones. I really believe that in generations from now, our grandchildren are going to look back at us and think that we were crazy the way that we engaged with our technology. I think it's going to be similar to the way that we look back at our grandparents who, for me, they were pack-a-day smokers, but they had no idea that it was an unhealthy habit. I mean, there were ads with doctors smoking cigarettes talking about the health benefits. And I think we'll look back at social media advertisements the same way. That's why I think social media addiction is one of the most important issues of our time, period. I believe that personally I suffer from it. I feel my attention span dwindling. My brain's more scattered than it's ever been. And while I once could sit still for hours of deep work, I now find it difficult to take minutes before I reach into my pocket for my phone. I mean, have you ever pretended to go to the bathroom at dinner with friends so that you can just spend a few more minutes on your phone, checking your email or your Instagram? Because I have. I feel my attention span dwindling. I feel my brain more scattered now than it ever was. I think that I, and maybe we, are never unplugged. Whether it's working or playing, we're always on our phones. Andrew has had a clear awareness of this trend for some time now, and he's been working in the humane tech and digital wellness industries for the last 4 years, long before the recent surge in awareness on the negative health effect that tech may have on us. Andrew built Siempo. He's pivoted a couple of times, but the mission is clear, that Siempo is going to help you take back control of your own attention. It's going to help you break bad habits. And frankly, we need this help. Without it, we're going to have to cultivate superhuman powers, as Naval Ravikant of AngelList recently said, to resist large teams of engineering geniuses at Facebook, Google, Amazon, Netflix, and the like, whose sole purpose is to keep us coming back for more. I think the CEO of Netflix recently said that one of his competitors is sleep. Think about that. Next time the little square comes up to ask you if you want to continue watching. I think of Siempo as a friend in our pockets. It keeps us honest and makes sure that we're building healthy habits. In this episode, we're going to discuss Andrew's journey, social media addiction, the challenges of building an entirely new category in tech, that of digital wellness, and much more. I really love this man. He's a gem. I love him. And I hope that you'll see it too. If you do, you can follow Andrew and Siempo's journey on Twitter and Instagram at AANDREWDUNN and at GetSiempo. I'll post the links underneath the episodes in the information section so that you can follow through. All right, without further ado, this is Andrew Murray Dunn. Andrew, again, thanks for coming on.
Thanks,
Mark.
Good
to see you, brother.
I'm thrilled to be here. Yeah, I appreciate the curiosity and the potentiality mindset you're bringing to this. It's cool to co-create it with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, I guess for starters, why don't you tell us a little bit about Siempo?
My pleasure. Siempo is solving smartphone addiction, which is this big, hairy problem that is still kind of unclear how to solve it at the personal level, the relational level, organizational, society. But I think it's a really important meta problem that a lot of our other challenges stem from. And we're trying to tackle that. So we started with the smartphone interface. We asked ourselves, how could we reimagine the smartphone home screen, the menus, the notifications, all of it to support your mental health, your well-being, your human potential. And so we use the behavior design lens to design it in such a way that reduces overuse, reduces unconscious use, and helps you feel better about your device. And we launched that last year and recently transitioned to an open source project because it turns out that there's a ton of developers, designers, data scientists, just like professionals in Silicon Valley who are really itching to put their life force into projects that are really helping the world. If you think about what time it is on planet Earth, it's not that the sky is falling, but these climate reports are coming out saying that things are going to get turbulent and we have more polarization than ever and mental health challenges are becoming more pervasive. And so I think it's important that we have people kind of getting in the bunker and working on some of these important challenges of our time.
Yeah, so there was a lot a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
And I'm excited that we have plenty of time to do it. So you mentioned behavioral design, and I think that's something that you're very familiar with, but certainly I could use to learn more about, and I'm guessing that people listening could use to learn more about. So can you kind of describe to us a little bit more about what behavioral design is and how you guys use it in Siempo?
Yeah. There's a lot that's been written about B.J. Fogg, a Stanford professor, and his Persuasive Technology Lab. A lot of the inventors of Instagram and some other social media, gaming, dating apps, they actually took some of his classes around how to get people to do things. And behavior design is about how to use triggers like notifications, ability like your environment, and motivation to get people to do a thing. And you can manipulate all those things. And you can also, you could do that like with an eye towards cessation, like stop this forever, or start this for a period of time, or create a long-term habit. So behavior design can be applied for stopping smoking. It could also be applied for come back to this game as much as possible and spend all your money on it. So it's gotten some criticism, and it is a key part of this whole attention economy debate that's going on, where we have incentives for companies to maximize engagement so that they can charge more for advertisements so they can make more money. And that's a big force that we're up against, because it's really easy to make money on the internet that way. You know, you build an Instagram following, you can suddenly you have lots of eyeballs, and then you can do sponsored posts. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that, but when the incentives of the system don't consider the well-being of all the agents in the system, and in this case, some of those agents are people and our well-being, and turns out there might be limits to how much we can spend on screens without sacrificing our physical health, our relationships, our sleep. And so that's kind of the question mark that's in the air. It's how can we start to design some of these products and change some of the incentive systems of our business models so that they support the well-being of all agents in the system.
So that's really helpful to understand. Thank you. I guess it sounds like you're turning behavioral design on its head, or maybe it's a neutral, not technology, but practice that can be used for both, good and quote unquote evil, or whatever you want to say subjectively.
Correct.
One question: how easily manipulable are we? Like, is it just Pavlov's dog? Is it just, let's just keep training these people to keep coming back and get a piece of tasty meat whenever the bell rings? Do we have, how much agency do we as individuals have when we're up against, this behavioral design being used to continue to drive us back to our phones in this instance?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to go in there.
Let's just go in.
Well, some of the things that are coming up, we've talked about Tristan Harris. He's the director at the Center for Humane Technology.
Huge Tristan fanboy. One day, if this thing takes off, we'd love to have you on the show, Tristan, once it has a name.
Yeah, he's been a huge inspiration to us, and he's really leading the charge in this movement. And as the executive director of the Center for Humane Technology, he goes around speaking and trying to explain to people how we've basically taken AI supercomputers and pointed them at your brain, and we're playing chess. A supercomputer is playing chess against your brain, and it can A/B test the shit out of that to predict how you're going to respond to like a certain video in your YouTube recommended feed. And so it's hard to maintain that sense of agency when you have such attentional warfare going on. And many people aren't even aware of that. When they land on YouTube, they're landing on a supercomputer that's going to win most of the time. Even for me, I've been working on my own digital wellness habits for about 5 years, and I'll be the first to admit I get stuck in these loops and holes of just like, I can't get off this screen. I know there's nothing to do.
Me too. I mean, I'm the same way, and people that are close to me, be it my family or my girlfriend or even some friends, call me out on my cell phone use. And I think one of the reasons why I'm so interested in this topic is that I believe and always have believed myself to be someone with strong willpower. And, we have this kind of mind over matter mentality. I think especially, I don't mean to kind of categorized, but especially amongst young men. You know, like, oh, if I just work hard, I can achieve.
Yeah.
And it kind of, it trickles down into every category. And in this instance, it trickled down for me as, you know, almost like this cycle of I abuse my phone and then I self-shame, and then it's a cycle, right? And one of the reasons why I want to draw attention to this topic is because, you know, I think we now need to draw superhuman powers as individuals to try to, you know, control ourselves from this manipulation. And to hear you describe it as being up against a supercomputer in a game of mental chess or mental warfare, I think will help people listening, and myself included, to say, okay, you know, let me take a step back from this. It's not me, right? The odds are stacked against me. So I guess, what do you think about that? And then how are you planning to turn that on its head?
Yeah, it's good to have compassion for yourself, because it's not a simple habit to cultivate. And I think that's one of the great challenges we face, is that there's no silver bullet. Like, it's not like we're solving this like one little point thing and it'll work for everybody. It's that we are very complex individuals with different personality patterns, different developmental traumas, different communication contracts with our partner, with work, different preferences for apps that we use, different levels of willpower and relationships with, like, you know, willpower. So yeah, this is like our third, fourth pivot. Like, we, you know,
and I want to talk about that as well.
Yeah,
later.
Absolutely.
You know, I think, well, we'll get there.
Yeah. I mentioned the multiple pivots because there's no silver bullet for this. I think it's a combination of software. We can reimagine some of the devices and the tools we use so that they support our intentions of focus and balance and presence. It's also changing our habits around where we place our physical device at different times of day. Do we leave it on, charging by our bed? Do we have it in our hand during our commute? Things like that. Do we have rules with our family at the dinner table? And then I think, honestly, meditation is probably one of the most important things.
Yeah.
And that could be a fun trail we go on, because different forms of meditation, at least some of the more popular ones that are available on apps, they're training this muscle of concentration and also of self-awareness, so that you can catch yourself when you have the impulse to reach for your phone and be like, oh, wait, do I need to do that in this moment? Or, oh, wait, what am I avoiding, or what am I craving in this moment?
Yeah.
And bringing that level of self-awareness to not just your relationship with tech, but really how you're showing up on a moment-to-moment basis around your whole being, I think is everything. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this problem, is because it's an incredible way to meet people, like 4 billion people, where they're at, because everyone's hanging out on this thing.
Yep.
And it's mostly problematic for people. And when we help free up hours of their time and help them feel less stress and more ease, and we're finding that people are motivated to find other places in their life to improve. And it just unlocks this wellspring of benefits. And the impact that even just one person kind of freeing up all that time and then changing how they're relating to their family, and, you know, maybe finding a job that's more nourishing to them and cleaning up their space. It's just like it ripples outwards. And so it's like, this is the thing. Like, I can't think of another thing that I would work on right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's so vast, right? And so important right now. I think, again, there's so much there. There's so many different directions that we can go in. You know, one thing I want to touch on is, you mentioned meditation, and something that I've been thinking a lot about recently is kind of this idea of just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. And meditation is a practice that sounds simple, right? It's like, oh, just sit still for 10 minutes a day, right? When you wake up. And, you know, being someone that practices, it's a struggle often, especially when I need it the most, to sit down and actually do it. Right. And that's the weird thing about meditation, is that it's when we need it the most that we're most averse to doing it.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what I'm so excited about with what you're doing and what many others are doing in this space is, like, we need the support of others, right? We need more tools. Meditation is one tool, but I don't know that in the game against supercomputer attention manipulation that all of us are capable of cultivating these superhuman powers of concentration and awareness, myself included. Like, I practice this stuff all the time, and it is so hard. I catch myself after almost, sometimes it can be like 30 minutes to an hour of mindless Twitter. Then when I get bored of Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, right? Facebook. And before I know it, I'm like, what have I been doing for the last, hour of my life?
Yeah.
So, cutting back to Siempo, what are you building?
Yeah.
And how is it going to help us?
Yeah.
Cultivate these superhuman abilities.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing it back to that. It's almost mind-boggling that no one has done this before. Like, it's so freaking obvious that the smartphone is addicting. Like, we've been talking about that for years now. So why don't we just change its design? Like, why don't we make rules for what's allowed on the home screen? Right now, it's a vending machine of corporate logos competing for your attention. They're really shiny. They've been A/B tested so that they're
so pretty.
Get you in. Yeah, they're really pretty.
I did grayscale like 2 weeks ago, I think, at your recommendation. Tristan's, and I was honestly depressed looking at my gray phone because it's just so pretty. Otherwise.
So you were depressed in that you just didn't really want to go into the phone?
It worked.
Yeah,
it didn't. I wasn't as attracted to the phone as I was when it was colorful. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It was so simple.
It's really simple. Yeah. So, for example, on Siempo, we've unbranded and grayscaled the icons so that they're not competing for your attention as much, and they're not adding cognitive load. Because when you open your phone and you see a new Tinder notification, that could be anything, could be anyone. And that's really distracting to whatever you were going to do when you open your phone on the way in or the way out. We also think a lot about notifications. So there's some controls on iOS and Android to decide when you want to be interrupted, but we have some deeper settings that lets you batch notifications, so you can have them only come in at the top of the hour or once a day, like the mail, except from certain people or apps.
And why is that important? Batching notifications.
I think it's important to set aside space. So for this hour, I'm going to be focused on my family, my friends, my work, and I'm not going to let notifications interrupt me. A lot of notifications are just corporations trying to schedule your thoughts. They're not actually a person trying to get in contact with you. But even if they are a person trying to get into contact with you, it's rarely an emergency. We've just been conditioned to think like, oh, shit, I need to respond ASAP because of some cultural thing.
And how do notifications currently work? Because, I don't know the validity of this. I think you would know better than I do. But I've been told that, it's asynchronous. So like Instagram slow drips my favorite people liking my photos, not when they do it, but in a slow drip so that I keep going back and get excited about it. Is that true? Or
I wouldn't be surprised. I can't confirm it.
Okay.
I know that a trick that Twitter does is it waits a moment to show you the number of new notifications because it kind of like jacks up that dopamine release. So yeah, all these things, we're basically trying to be a protective layer against the persuasive techniques of these apps. And so we do that on the home screen. We also, on the home screen, we prompt you to enter an intention or a mantra, something that would be more skillful for you to see 100 times a day than the vending machine of corporate logos. People really like that. And we have the icons, and we also tier your icons so that the tools are closest by. And then when you first download the app, you select which apps you want to use less. And those go on the third page where they're lower contrast. The location randomizes every time. So your thumb is less likely to habituate, knowing exactly where it is.
It's crazy when you move around an icon on your phone to see your hand, to see my hand actually go, oh wait, Instagram's not there anymore. Okay, wait, maybe I don't want to be on Instagram right now.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
that's great.
This little pattern interrupts. And then we have a really cool feature that I wish had gotten more love in public, but I don't know, in time. If you open one of those apps that you flagged to use less, we pop up a little screen cover.
Okay.
Maybe it's like 1 inch at the bottom of the screen. and it tells you how much time you're spending on the app. And it also offers you alternative options like open your notes app to journal or open your wellness app. Maybe it's your meditation app.
Got it.
And then that screen cover grows and grows with time. So it's real-time feedback as to, like, you set your intention that you don't want to use this. We're going to gently nudge you towards better behavior. And you can move the screen cover around. But Android just offers, right now we're only on Android because it offers developers the most degrees of freedom to really experiment with better ways of designing a smartphone interface or any app. iOS allows us to do some of this stuff. But yeah, really, we're trying to help people. And the first way we can do that is by putting in these almost protective layers against the things that make the apps most addicting.
I mean, we need it, right? Like, we need, I think, society, culture, individuals, millennials, however you want to frame it.
Yeah.
We need help, right? And it's not coming from the government, not necessarily, right? In Europe,
maybe the government of Bhutan.
More. Yeah. Oh, Bhutan, really?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, I'd like to approach a partnership with the government of Bhutan if anyone has a connection.
Oh, great.
Because they have the gross national happiness index.
Yeah, I think, I think thinking about gross national happiness and happiness in regards to your cell phone use would be great. For sure. I think it's great. I like the way you described yourself as a protective layer, right? You guys are like the first line of defense for our brains, which are currently being used.
I like to think of it as we're in this digital city. It's a real space that's been designed with certain values and
the metaverse.
intentions. The metaverse, sure. I've never heard that.
Snow Crash, Neil Stephenson. We're not in virtual reality world yet. It's like the Oasis in Ready Player One. You know, we're in this digital world.
Oh yeah. So it's a little polluted. There's a casino on every corner. This is another Tristan analogy that I really like. And so we actually started as this hardware project. We wanted to make a new type of smartphone designed from the ground up, doing all the right things.
Yeah.
You know, privacy, ethics, mindfulness, blah, blah, blah. But, and that was kind of like, let's create a whole new city and get people to move to that one. But that was a lot for people. Like, it's scary,
hard.
you know? Yeah, what if it doesn't have all the things I like? And what if it doesn't work out? And so with Android, with software, now we're meeting people where they're at in this city, and we're arming them or supplying them with protective layer, maybe like an air filter, sunglasses, sunscreen, a helmet. None of those things are particularly sexy, but I think that but like
some helmets are kind of sexy. I don't know. It depends on the helmet.
You're right. Okay, so it's like
there's a scooter helmet back there.
It's like one of those sexy Bluetooth connected motorcycle helmets, which aren't very safe. But yeah, so we're trying to meet people where they're at and help them navigate this polluted city with more intention, more support, and maybe a better way to think of it is like we're like the safe neighborhood, or we have like a park and a community center, and we're just like we're trying to do things a little differently, and we hope that setting the example can put market pressure on the rest of the city to adopt what we're doing.
I was just reminded of, growing up, we had Safe Halloween in my town. So it was basically, for younger kids, instead of them kind of wandering around, the neighborhood, going to different strangers' homes and knocking on doors, they would go to the local elementary school. And there'd be a bunch of kind of like booths set up and rooms and things for them. So, I like that. It's almost like a walled garden or, safe community for humane tech. I want to go back to something that you said earlier.
Yeah.
You were talking about what you do with kind of screen time. And it's so cool because now people are really starting to catch on with Apple and iHealth and, iOS launched their screen time feature. Now, the funny thing is I'm fascinated by this trend, and I haven't even been able to find where I can go search for screen time, right? Well, I have now, but it took me time, right?
Oh, wow.
And maybe that just speaks to me being like a little tech illiterate. But obviously you guys have been thinking about this for a much longer time than they have. And you're taking it and meeting people where they are and then making it active, right? Whereas I think what they're saying is like, look back, and it can be shocking when you see, I spent 12 hours on my phone today.
Yeah.
But what do you think about the initiatives at some of these larger players, like Apple taking on, even adding the screen time feature? Is that a step in the right direction? Is it reactionary, too little, too late? Are they just trying to do just enough so that we stay hooked and they can say, well, we tried?
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
I think it's a little bit of everything. that you described. I think it meets expectations. This is growing consumer demand. People are looking for help, and these companies are the best positioned to help because they have such a large user base. So it'll take us a long time to get to 1 billion users. It'll take Apple a few engineers and designers in a few months to turn a switch and arm people with some of these tools. I think that, so our theory of change is that those companies will continue to adopt the best of what the third party, which means like the developer ecosystem, builds. And so the products that found product market fit, which means they had, millions of users, were these time tracking apps and productivity oriented apps that help you set boundaries. And so when consumer demand, when public pressure was starting to mount, thanks to Tristan and thanks to these Apple shareholders and Common Sense Media, like just people in different parts of society starting to make some noise about this and demand, hey, like, what are you doing? It made sense for Apple and Google to figure out, hey, here's something that's working. So we feel confident that we're going to put it out there and it'll be helpful to a bunch of people. And I think they do care. At the end of the day, they're not like, robber baron, like, trying to mess with people's livelihoods. There's just a lot.
So FANG is not evil.
I mean, I think there's some quote coming to mind around decent people in decent systems. And I think all companies have to evolve in a certain way in order to meet the demands of our time, which are around climate change and mental health. And like there are some existential risks out there that I think businesses as a major force in society need to be thinking about. And I think consumers are starting to choose ethical alternatives based on how a company, like if you remember the Uber Lyft stuff that was going on like a year or two ago, clear example. So I think that it's great that Apple and Google are starting to take this seriously and raising awareness for a lot of people. I think they'll continue to lag in innovation. And that's what Siempo is most excited about. And is the reason that we pivoted to open source because we're this interface, this layer, this lightweight operating system, we can basically, we can get really creative, push the limits of innovation with the help of hundreds, thousands of people who have all sorts of crazy ideas, bring in experts, partner with nonprofits who've been studying bullying.
Can you, for anyone that's listening that doesn't know what open source is?
Oh yeah.
Right, because I think that's a very known concept in tech communities, but it's something that many of us don't really know. Can you kind of describe what open source means?
Yeah, and I didn't know what it meant like 6 months ago.
Exactly.
It was kind of just this intuition. Like, really, it was a sense of, so we're a tech startup. We're trying to go the typical route, raise money, get users. And I just had the sense of like, I can't help but think that if we really want this mission to happen fast, then we need more people working on it together. And what's open source about? Because I hear that's about like a lot of people working on a project. And it seems like a cool way to invite all this potential energy. I noticed that we had a lot of people email us saying like, I love your product. If you ever need help, like I'd love to contribute design skills or data science skills, engineering skills. And so I'm like, well, yeah, that sounds great. Like, why don't we invite that support in? And so I did a little open source research, and a lot of people have a misconception that open source means free and there's no money in it. But I don't have to go into the whole business case, but there's lots of companies that make successful businesses around open source.
I mean, BitTorrent would be one such example, right?
Red Hat sold to IBM for $34 billion recently.
So there's definitely financial incentives, but I think still, so
what is
it? What is it?
Right? So at the core, most companies, like Facebook, is closed source. Well, most of Facebook is closed source, meaning you can't copy their code. It's kind of like the Coca-Cola secret. You can do your best to reverse engineer it and probably do a fine job because it's not anything that's like magic. But it'll take time and resources and money to hire the people to do that. Open source is, hey, our code's out in the public. You can add to it to make it better. You can borrow it and make your own thing. And depending on the license, we may require you to publish all the changes that you make or not. But basically, for me, it allows these ideas to proliferate. Like, if we're trying to get from one Siempo user to a billion Siempo users by ourselves, that's going to take years. Maybe it'll never happen.
Yeah.
But as an open source project, we might get there faster. Other people can build their own versions of Siempo. And most importantly for me is that we just have a lot more people creating prototypes that both consumers and professionals can rally around, and Apple and Google executives can see, oh shit, here's a thing that's working. It really helps people. Maybe it's actually not so damaging to our business. Maybe it's just the right thing to do. Maybe we could do it better. And so like the tide's just rising, all the boats, or whatever that phrase is.
Yeah.
And everyone wins. And it's just like, and in the process, because we're the center of gravity around this thinking and all these resources coming together, we build a great brand, and then we can offer other products and services that deliver value to people. So it's just like, for me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, I've got a vision of, I don't even know if this scene existed in Braveheart, but like William Wallace and his kind of small crew of troops trying to fight against the great British Empire or whatever it was at that time. You know, this small band of vigilantes. And then all of a sudden the kind of the horseback riders and the cavalry comes in. And you guys were trying to, and we'll talk about how you pivoted and you've been thinking about this now for at least 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Maybe longer, and you're working on this problem and you're trying to help us, the consumer who are alone on this island, not even realizing that literally we're getting pinged with just like, here's some dopamine, have fun, open your phone, and you're all alone. And then all of a sudden it's like, let's just open it up. And now you've started to see this community rally around what you're building. And I really feel, having been following your journey through this process, that you're just at the very beginning of this, and the cavalry is going to keep coming in. Right. And I mean, we're at this major inflection point right now where people are starting to realize, hey, like, tech is only going to get more integrated into our persons. Yeah. And we need to figure out ways to protect ourselves. And we need help, right? Which is why I think you're building what you're building. And it's so exciting. So that's great. So you open source the code and you have more people building new tools. Let's rewind. Yeah. Let's go like way back.
Okay.
Why? Like, what happened? Something happened, right? You had your epiphany moment, or maybe it was just a little slower than that. Maybe that's not always how things happen. But, tell me what led you down this path. I think that's important for people to understand.
Yeah, I normally jump to the story because there was a moment 5 years ago, but I could also go back even further. I think there's...
Go back as far as you want. We have all the time in the world right now. This is great.
All right, so my great-grandfather immigrated and the newspaper was around. Okay. But like, you can name those things because they are present in some form or another.
It's true.
So yeah, I think it probably... I have to consider that growing up in the suburbs, where maybe on a Friday night, it wasn't easy to go meet up with friends. It was more like rural suburbs where I lived. Because I didn't have a car and I had a computer in my room. And so I was hanging out on AOL Instant Messenger a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And then when Facebook was out, I was in 10th grade, I think. And it was just like, wow, now I can kind of see what people are up to. And, I had some light social anxiety during that time. And it was just an easy
away
way.
Messages were just the worst.
Why?
That would lead to the worst social anxiety. I remember, somebody left an away message, or like, actually, I remember this specifically, you'd be on late at night chatting it up. And then all of a sudden, like, you'd say something to this person and the away message would go up. And it would be like, wait a second, we were in the middle of a conversation. You can't just away message me. And it's like, to be continued, the next day.
Yeah. Wow. We were stepping into our digital power.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of habits were formed during that time. And I think I was finding it a really great escape, also a way of maybe feeling more comfortable in social settings because I could have digital conversations and build relationships that way. And that was more comfortable to me than approaching a stranger in public, in the cafeteria or something. And then in college, like, kind of same thing. Yeah, I got into social life more. I was throwing parties. And so there was a real need for me to be making Facebook events and inviting people. And, I was more interested in dating. And so there was like a whole culture of like, having conversations and whatever. And then, my studies suffered. I noticed I was spending a lot of time on my phone and on my computer, and friends would call me out all the time, but like no one was talking about solutions. And I don't think I really had the sense of that I could change this. It was just like a thing, like, oh well, I obviously I have to be on my phone because like I'm talking to all these people at once. And
now it's I have to be on my phone because I'm checking work emails or I'm communicating with this group and it's important to me, and we're just there's all these any number of reasons to be plugged in.
Oh yeah,
right. And
it's extremely useful.
It is. I mean, it's a great tool, but
and some of our careers are reliant on it. Yeah.
For sure. And I've received a few messages. So when I started posting about social media use, I've received messages from people like, hey, like, how do you recommend I work in social media? Right. So my job is to be on all the time, checking hashtags, doing this. I'm in PR, right? Like, this is what I do. How do you recommend that I, step back, or how do I cope with that? So that's one reason.
Yeah.
Right, that I think people often use, and I can imagine it's much harder if it's your job.
Yeah. I think those people need to be compensated more. There's actually a great article in The Verge about Facebook outsourcing psychological, I forget the term that was used, but basically all the content moderators who are looking at like really horrific things that are happening on Facebook Live, and like those people are like they're watching all this stuff all day long. And I don't think that I didn't read the article, to be honest, but like I have kind of a sense of what's going on.
I hear you.
Like you can imagine someone whose job it is to watch really
well when you get into the depths of the internet, the things that people post. I mean, this is so important. Actually, Tristan posted today on his Twitter. So I'm on social media obviously all the time, and
shouting out Siempo, which
exactly, of course. I mean, I love what you guys are doing, and he posted that there is a how to commit suicide video on YouTube Kids.
Jeez.
Right. And so, we have these neutral, air quote platforms that have some level of responsibility, right, for the content that's there. And so, of course, they need people that are scanning this content. And when you get really dark,
right,
can you imagine seeing something like that? Right. And the psychological baggage that you would have to carry from that. So you were saying that you feel they should be compensated more. People that work in kind of the muck of digital content.
And even if it's not the muck, even if it just requires being on a screen for more than half of your waking life, which I think many knowledge work. Right.
Isn't that all of us now? Right. Like,
right.
It's like go to the office, and if you're not sitting for me at least, in my experience with investment banking and other work, it's like, I'm sitting in front of my computer all day, and half of the time I'm like, why am I here? And then, you realize like people in office environments, they're sitting in front of the computer, they're watching videos, they're on chat, they're not really doing their work. This is like classic Tim Ferriss stuff, right? You don't need that much time in the office to actually get your job done.
Right.
But we all are so plugged in for work.
It begs a great question. And so if that is going to be the nature of the work for a lot of people, and I think, AR, VR are coming online, but I think, for a lot of the world, computer screens, device screens are going to be, me too. I think it'll bring new challenges and opportunities.
Yeah.
Every technology does. And so right now, the technology that a lot of people are using are these smartphones and computers, and they weren't really designed with much thought about how to calm our nervous system, but they could be. With computer vision, with biometric scanning through cameras, there's a lot more that's possible. And so we're actually working with a few different companies right now on prototyping that. So
that's so
your
cool.
phone's interface can adjust maybe the color, the font, what it surfaces based on how you're breathing, how your heart rate is. And I think
I'm breathing slower just thinking about that.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Like
so cool.
I would spend a lot of money personally on a device that offered that, or a piece of software that offered. So, I'm going to go back to the story.
I keep interrupting you.
No, it's okay.
But I definitely, there's just so much, there's so much here.
Yeah.
Like,
we could just probably talk all day.
Yeah. And we have, I think.
Yeah.
About this stuff.
So fast forward, I'm 23, and this was about a decade after I got my first phone and my first computer in my room. And I think I had I don't know, it's called low grade depression, or just I I was struggling in a lot of different areas of my life, but I couldn't really name it. I didn't have I couldn't ask for support, and externally, like from the outside looking in, a lot of things were going well. So it was like, I guess this is just how life is. Like I sensed that it could be so much more, but I don't know. It was just kind of like,
it's like a subtle, dull vibration in the background.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And there were clear opportunities where I was like, wow, I think my emotional intelligence, I don't even think I knew those words. I don't think I knew those words, but it was just like, I think I've been limited by spending most of my waking lives on these screens. And that became crystal clear when I moved to India when I was 23 to help a friend with a business.
Wow.
And there were no like spiritual motivations or anything for going there.
Yeah.
But a month in, I took a few days to travel by myself. And not only was that solitude really powerful, but I'll never forget that first night when I was alone in a hotel room. It was like a $5 motel room or something. And I didn't have internet for the first time in a decade. All I had was a notebook and this book I was reading and my thoughts. And it's Friday night, and everything just came to a halt. It was like this decade of go, 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 and do, accomplish, and screens. Like it just came to a pause.
Mm-hmm.
Like I looked down at my hands, just like, who am I? Like what have I been doing?
The age-old question.
Like I had just been on like this dull hum on like for a decade, and like I mean that night was so profound because I just had the opportunity to self-reflect and think about how I was showing up and like, what do I really want? Like, where are my deepest desires?
And I'm going to interrupt the story one more time and we'll keep going with it.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is my podcast. I don't know. No, but it's what's interesting to me about this story thus far is here you are in a place where there's no internet, there's no connectivity, you don't have your mobile phone, and that's when you have this realization. And yet, on the flip side, we are in this mad dash globally to put a smartphone in every single human's pocket.
Yeah.
Right? And give them information access. So these little oases outside of our tech, they're disappearing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole other conversation. I mean, like one of my motivations is to help the next billion people leapfrog the attention economy so they don't have to deal with this. So they have technology that is by default helps them balance its power with how it can enrich their lives. And they just don't have to deal with all the shit that we've been dealing with the last few years. Because there was a time where I thought, maybe people middle class in Indonesia shouldn't have smartphones because it takes them away from each other and from their rich culture, their way of life. I think that this is a complicated question.
Yeah, it's not even, I mean, there's no right answer, right? And I think the benefits of tech are clear, right? And the connectivity that we have, we're able to just plug in to learn anything. We have the memory of history at our fingertips. We don't even need long-term memory in our brains anymore. Yeah. Right. And there's all those benefits. But then, of course, there's these challenges as you described. And I love that concept of leapfrogging these challenges that we've faced in the same way that they're leapfrogging wired, telecommunication. Right now, we can give them the tools. Because I'm not doing it, although maybe we'll see. We can give them the tools that allow them to engage in a way that's healthy. And I actually this kind of brings something else up because it goes back to your story.
Yeah.
You're 13 years old. You're on AIM.
Yeah.
You get your first cell phone.
Yeah.
We're the first generation that grew up without this connectivity.
Right.
And I still remember dialing into AOL through the phone line. And it's like, right.
Starting AOL.
Yeah, exactly. And my sister got like a crazy phone bill, I remember, because she had like a 1-900 number. But, what about like the next generation that's coming up with this tech at all times that are sitting at dinner tables with their iPads?
Yeah. I feel for the parents, the teachers. The demands are just so much greater given the challenges where, kids are all getting phones earlier and earlier because their friend has one and because they might need a tablet to do their homework or the school gives them with a policy. And, we're seeing some really sad impacts of that. I think I think now that there's more awareness and research, there's a lot of good people trying to work on those problems too. And I'm optimistic that that we'll be able to help the Gen Z, the generation that comes after, and that they also seem to have developed other skills that our generation didn't, because of the way that they're able to work with large groups of people to get something done in Minecraft or something like that. And like if
it's interesting, like massive coordination abilities.
Yeah. And I mean, if products like Siempo work really well, then we will be able to meet maybe a teenager and reverse some of these harmful habits that they've picked up. And I'm hopeful.
Well, have you seen any other companies in the space or anyone that inspires you that's working specifically on this challenge for kids?
Yeah, a really good friend, Gabby, who I was going to recommend for this podcast.
Oh, great.
Yes, he's perfect.
Signing it up. Taking notes.
Yeah. Gabby Gibran, happy, helping awesome parents parent intentionally. And then there's some products out there. This company, Circle, just raised $20 million, which is really validating for our space. And it helps. It's like a really consumer-friendly way to control the Wi-Fi and connectivity in the house, which apps kids can use and can't use. I haven't worked with the product, and I honestly don't know too much about the company, but I have ambitions of making stuff specifically for children. And I'm really grateful that in the Bay Area, we're surrounded by lots of experts in whether it's pediatrics or mental health or even adult development. Because I think that a lot of the parenting products right now are a bit forceful. It's kind of like making people feel bad and like taking something away. Yes. And I think there's probably more pro-social ways of working with the children.
Yeah.
And that's one reason why I feel really good about my ability and my team's ability to continue progressing on what we're doing, is because being where we are, there's just such expertise and depth of wisdom at our fingertips. And so if you think about like the next Facebook, next Google, like what ingredients would you want that company to start with, right? These companies keep stumbling. So we think about emotional intelligence, we think about ethics, think about privacy, think about diversity and inclusion, and we think about resilience. And like, so I'm just trying to figure out all those ingredients for myself.
Can you talk about resilience?
Yeah. I don't know the technical definition, but
what does it mean to you?
Yeah. To me, it means that we have a really strong mission. And even though we've come up against lots of roadblocks, we are able to shake those off, learn from them, and keep moving forward and get creative.
This is a perfect segue back to your story. So here you are in India.
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yep.
And you discover your hands because they're not holding a phone.
They're trying. It's moisturizer. Yeah. So that was just like, and the next few days I was kind of high on life. I was going up to strangers. I was getting outside my comfort zone.
There's some great theme music in the background.
Yeah. Having all sorts of weird experiences. And that kind of traces my digital wellness journey, but also personal growth journey. And I don't want to say like rebirth or something, but it did start this new me, where I started to become more curious about the world and be more open-minded, take more risks, really want to know myself and to better myself. And that has come in fits and starts, because there were some jobs that I picked up which were just more like, heads down, 24/7, always on. But those only reinforced that, holy shit, this is a problem, this whole balance with technology thing. Yeah. So about 3 years ago, I left a job in tech, and I was like, all right, like what matters to me? Like, I have so many privileges that I just want to work on something that is going to nourish my soul and serve the whole in some way. Yeah. And I think because I've been keeping my ear close to the ground for some progressive business culture movements and ideas, I was like, I think I can make something that's going to be really helpful and be a great business. And I want to try that. So I was thinking about, okay, like what matters? What have I really struggled with? I thought about tech addiction, and I had this one wearable idea that, I was hacking away on, and I pitched it at a meetup. it was the first time I pitched, and I only got up the courage to pitch because the last night I had chickened out at karaoke. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do it.
What was the karaoke song that you chickened out on?
I don't remember. I don't know if I picked a song. I think I was just
you
like...
just were sitting in the back.
Yeah, I'll go later. I'm not going to go.
Do you have a go-to karaoke song?
Now? I don't even know if I've done karaoke since then.
I think my go-to karaoke song is... there's a Celine Dion song that I used to sing with my sisters.
Yeah?
It's great.
Which one?
Oh, man. I don't know
the
name
Titanic
of it.
one?
Not the Titanic one. That one's a good one, though. It's like, there were moments of cold and there were flashes of light. Anyways, we'll save the singing for another podcast.
Maybe that could be a part of the intro.
Yeah.
5 breaths, Celine Dion.
5 breaths. Yeah, Celine Dion. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
We used to sing it in front of the mirror. When we didn't have phones. So you go up and you pitch this wearable.
Yeah. And then these other guys are pitching a mindful phone. And I was like, wait a minute. Our stories sound so similar. We should talk. And it was kind of this love at first sight thing. And then we had a couple conversations, started working together. And I wound up joining their team 2.5 years ago. And they were building a phone, like a device that I mentioned before. And they had pivoted before because they were originally trying to build it from scratch. They wanted to make like a better feature phone. And like the whole idea was like, yeah, like phones are distracting. We need something better. We don't need all these bells and whistles. We just kind of need the bare essentials. So let's make a phone.
And there's something like that has just recently been released that people keep sending to me.
There's a few.
It looks like a calculator.
The Light phone, probably.
Yeah, the Light phone.
Awesome guys in New York. Yeah, and there's definitely a place for that, like as a companion phone, or for some people who the demands of their job don't necessitate having access to third-party ecosystem apps. And that's kind of what our original vision was. But then building a phone from scratch, as the Light guys will tell you, is really hard and capital intensive and takes a long time.
And not to mention, right, there's this aversion in Silicon Valley to hardware for whatever reason. I think it's changing, but a lot of VCs just don't want to touch it.
Yeah.
They've been burned so many times.
I think it's riskier for sure. So yeah, that first pivot was from building it ourselves to let's white label, like let's outsource the device development because people in China have perfected this. Let's just focus on the user experience on the software side. And I think that was so important to where we are today because we were one of the only companies thinking about, okay, how do we reimagine the whole smartphone user experience as opposed to, hey, let's just solve for this little thing or help people do this one habit. And so that's when I joined the team and we did a Kickstarter campaign for that. And it got a lot of buzz. This was exactly 2 years ago. It didn't really pan out in the way we were hoping for. I think it was too early. We underestimated the switching costs. And we learned that people have such unique preferences when it comes to what they want or don't need.
As you said, they didn't want to move to the new city.
Yeah, right.
They wanted you to meet them where they were.
Right. And so that was a clear, okay, well, if we want to keep going ahead, we could try this route. But we had no money. Our existing leadership, some personal life demands meant that they couldn't continue. And this was, again, like a new to the world thing. Like, and the second pivot, like, going to be lots of challenges doing it. But there was enough belief in me and also, or I had enough like trust and vision, and others on my team did, that we're like, okay, no, let's explore this. Let's take what we learned and let's try something different. And so that's what we did. And we raised some money and we built a great team. And then we built this Android interface and we launched that a year ago. Everything is like in March.
Yeah. It's a good time of year, springtime.
Yeah, springtime, new beginnings.
Yeah.
But then it's a roller coaster, sometimes my life feels like an episode in Silicon Valley where, things are hopeless and then a miracle happens. Yeah.
Sometimes the miracle doesn't come. But
sometimes got vacations and that's the lesson.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I want to talk more about this as well because I think, your journey is so fascinating. Like coming to the second pivot, like, what are you thinking now? You've already changed once. You know, how are you keeping the courage, the faith to keep going?
I'm glad you asked this because I don't think anyone has really asked, but it was a really interesting moment in my life because I think I have had a need to be on the forefront, pioneer. like be where the action is. Like I want to feel that belonging, that inclusion. And that's part of what I think kept me in South and Southeast Asia for when I was 23, 24. It's like, yeah, I want to be like where things are happening, emerging markets. And like,
yeah,
I can bring in this new innovation to these people or something. I don't know.
No, I feel that you want to be on the cutting edge.
Yeah.
You want to have impact.
Yeah. Yeah. Like adventure. I was like craving adventure.
Yeah.
Maybe from movies I watched when I was younger. Maybe it's like something in the human.
So would you
DNA.
say that, well, I think in some ways it is, right? And I was going to ask, would you say that you had at that time a bias towards new?
Yeah. I had started a few small projects, companies in high school, college, and after. I was always thinking. I think one of my strengths is connecting the dots between people and ideas and putting things together and galvanizing people around them.
You're an incredible community builder.
Oh, thanks, man.
And dot connector. I mean, I know obviously you started Wharton Wisdom, which we can talk about. I'd like to talk about your community building efforts as well, and also the Digital Wellness Warriors. I think was something that you kind of maybe started or at least were an early participant in.
Yeah.
Co-founded. Okay. That's what I thought. So anyway, so we go back to your second pivot. So like, what are you feeling? How are you staying sane? I mean, like a second, like this is something that when an entrepreneur faces one pivot, right? It's like, oh man, like we need to change everything again. And then you lose a team member. Yeah. And pivot again.
You know, the salary.
No salary. Like, how are you holding it together? Or are you holding it together? Because I've been there before as well.
The thing that's coming up is there were a few conversations with friends who were, they were just checking in with me and encouraging me to stick with this, like that there's something there and there's now a leadership opportunity I could step into to lead this company, because before I was not leading it. I was an operations manager. And I think I went on a meditation retreat, and so like I had some more space. I went on a few hikes. I think I just had I like my trust ran deep. I was like, yeah, this is still really important, and I am now on the cutting edge of something, and I just sense that staying in here will bring benefits to my career, my personal life, because working in this wellness industry, I think is like
the most incredible people.
It's amazing. It brings so much value just by being here, even if you don't make a salary from it. And it just felt like it felt like we're onto something, and I want to see it through. And so that I think that
would you describe it as? I mean, is it faith? Is it almost religious? Is it just trust? Is it trust in yourself? Is it just are you evaluating the pros and cons at this point and building T charts and saying like, well, relationship and I'm on the cutting edge and all that? Like, can you kind of parse that a little bit more?
Yeah. I think another skill of mine is listening to intuition. It's a skill that I'm constantly honing, but like getting into those meditation nature spaces, I think that's what I learned time and again. I did my first Vipassana meditation course a few weeks ago, which is a 10-day silent meditation retreat in this particular tradition.
I really want to try one of those. I can't believe I haven't done one yet.
In time, and
soon.
Yeah. One of many things that came through to me was just like, of course, whenever I step away from the screens and the doing and the working, the to-do list, that's when all the clarity and creativity and the magic comes through. And that's when I fall in love with life again and again. And it's just, I want that in my life more and more. So I've started doing these more like Shabbat, Sabbath type practices. Like last Saturday, I didn't bring my phone out in the morning, and I kind of walked down to the lake. I got some coffee. I journaled. And I basically spent 3 hours, and it was just like, again, like visioning, creativity, like all the things are so clear, and I just know what to do. It just gives me this roadmap for life. And I think the roadmap that was coming through at the Hardware to Software pivot was just that, like I think this this can go. Let's try it. I think it's going to be fruitful in one way or another.
So you trust your intuition. You take space. One of your practices is taking space away from the action, from the constant desire to do something.
Yeah, get out of your head.
You sit and you feel into this is my journey. This is what my heart is telling me to do. And you actually listen to that.
Yeah, I'm getting better at the listening to emotions in the body. I can't say I can really discern like the heart versus the gut versus whatever, but I think there's something.
I'm hungry.
I know a good spot.
I like pizza.
Okay.
Well, it's cool. I mean, it's great, and I think what's so interesting about that is what you're building is cultivating that for others, right? When we're constantly on our phones, doing, consuming, we don't have that space for creative free flow of thought where we start to connect those dots internally and make decisions. And so what you're doing is so important to help others cultivate what you are currently building for yourself and what's led you on this path.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
We could drop the mic right there. Like, that's why I'm doing this. It's not to like wake up the world or anything. It's just like in personal experience, and as we've seen among our users and conversations, it's like when we get into healthier habits around our relationship with technology, just like all the good stuff emerges. And what's hard is that it's hard to measure the best things in life, like love and compassion and kindness and service. Like, but we know when we do them that like, yes, like this is,
it feeds our soul. There's some kind of positive feedback loop that starts to develop.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah, it's crazy to me to think about. I often think about this space and how, over time, at least over the last century, we've kind of our personal mental space has been invaded by media, and it has positive effects. But like, you go from going to the movies to consume media to going to to a radio in your home around the same time. And now you constantly have access, and then it's television, so it's visual, right? And then of course we evolved to computers, and now the phone is by your bed, and that space needs to be actually made. We need to make that space for ourselves, and it's really challenging, but that's where like the magic happens.
Exactly. Where does that happen for you?
Honestly, I wish that I gave myself more stillness, more silence, to really kind of feel through what I'm trying to do, right? Like, I also like to think that I follow my intuition, but oftentimes it's hard to identify what is the voice of a desire, for example, or an ego-driven voice, right? Like maybe I want financial gain, or maybe, I want attention, versus what is kind of heart-driven. I think about it with this right now, right? With this podcast. Like, why am I doing this? Right. And, is it ego driven? Is it like, oh, I have attention now, so let's like try to keep that attention? Or is it really like, I know people like you in my life that I get to share with others now, and the messages that they bring. And I like to think it's the latter, and I hope that it is.
I sense that.
Yeah, it really is. And I don't know. I mean, that space, I definitely take meditation time. I've now been, it got worse because I started going down this kind of blockchain rabbit hole. Yeah. And that industry was so crazed over the last year and a half. And so my physical practice faded, my meditation practice faded. I don't sleep near my phone. I think that's like just such an easy fix, right? Like, just plug your phone in the living room. Yeah. And I have an old analog alarm. Great. That I use to wake myself up. So people are like, oh, but I use my phone for my alarm. Like, no, you don't really need to. There's these things. They're called alarm clocks. Yeah. So that's where I create space for myself. But I would love to take like proper time, I find like even the weekends, I on the weekends, fill that space with other people. Yeah. Because I want to just communicate, right? And I want to be out there. But like, my favorite weekends are the ones where I just have so much laundry to do that I have to stay home. So I'm just like, all right, laundry. And then I sit in my backyard and I kind of chill. Yeah. It's so nice. Anyways, this isn't about me, but, so we're going back to you trust your intuition, right? You create space for yourself. And I want to get back to Pivot 2 and kind of where you've gone. But before that, you asked me what my practices are. I'd love to hear more about what kind of practices or superhuman powers you're trying to cultivate that have helped you in your journey. You mentioned a few already.
But. Yeah. I feel so grateful to be living in this place, in this time, in these communities, because it provides access to like everything that's possible, from ancient and modern traditions, East and West, science and contemplative, whatever. So I like to dip my toes in, just get a feel for like, oh, what's going on with, somatic therapy healing? What's going on with improv or dance? What's going on with, this form of meditation or this type of forest bathing? And yeah, I think I'm still in a phase of exploring. On a daily basis, I have a meditation practice. I do a little qigong, just kind of moving meditation. I journal. I try to dance in my room for like at least a song or two. That's been really fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of ecstatic dance.
Yeah, really?
I love that practice.
Maybe we can go tomorrow.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be really fun. There's something about just like when after the first 10 or 15 minutes, when you're just noticing the way that your body's moving, or when I'm noticing the way that my body's moving and thinking about it, and like, am I being watched like other people? And then all of a sudden just something goes off and none of that's happening in the background anymore. Yeah. Dance is incredible. And that's what my physical yoga practice brings as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Just getting out of your head into your body. Yeah. It's really wonderful. Yeah. There's so many things. Lately, I've actually gone a bit intellectual, getting into more philosophy and politics. There's this political party that's new that I'm inspired by called One Nation. And it's partially grounded in this metamodernism ideology. And so that's brought me down the trail of metaphysics. And I just moved to Oakland, and I live in a more justice-oriented house. And so I get a lot of different inspirations from different places. And I think that's one of my superpowers, if you will. It's that I can open myself up and relate in a lot of diverse spaces. And then
I've seen that firsthand.
Yeah. Sweet. And then I draw inspiration, and like, the dust settles, and it's like, oh yeah, like that has resonance. Let's go with that. And I don't even know how to describe it.
But you're not blindly just, and I think one of the challenges on kind of the spiritual path, and we're moving more towards mindfulness here and mental health and things like that, or maybe even spirit, is this kind of, we can bring that searching for meaning with us into the spiritual path. And there are plenty of people that want to fill that void with their philosophy, with their teachings, whatever. And what I just resonated with me from what you just said is, you take little bits of everything and make them your own. You're not like enamored with one practice that then becomes like, if you're not a Kundalini yogi and you're wearing white every day and you're sending the energy up your spine in this specific way with this chant, then you are not spiritual. Right. Like I really like that. There's so much to be learned from all of these different traditions, and maybe integration is one of your greatest superpowers.
Yeah. I like the sound of that.
It's nice.
And I think it's cool too that people are also devoted to a singular path and practice. My style, at least right now, has just been like, wow, there's so much amazing stuff. I'd love to try it all. And then I'll learn what I like. And I'm still pretty young, so we'll see where it goes. But yeah, it's just such a gift to be able to, like, as part of my job description, it's spend my spare time trying all these things, which I like to do, and often improve me in various ways, and then use that as like a competitive advantage to build something that's really awesome and really helps people wake up from the hypnosis of technology and connect to things and people that make them come alive.
Yeah, and I think about, I'm so excited for what you're going to build and what you are building, and how you and your team and the whole community that is now going to start spiraling around this is going to bring some of these practices and ideologies into the development of technology going forward. Yeah. It's crucial, right? And like we have, Elon Musk and Brian Johnson and these guys kind of at a super high level thinking about human brain interfaces, right? Because AI is going to take over the world and we're all going to become paper clips if we don't do that. But like this is like the heart of it, what you're building. It's the heart of that.
Yeah, it feels really important. And there's something I just wanted to add about. Yeah, I just want to rehash how important I think psychological support and growth are to the 21st century. I think that like right now politics are in the air. I mean, always in America, but like people are debating this issue, that issue. It's nice to see climate coming more front and center, because I think that's really important, and we need to collaborate and like develop collective intelligence around that so we can address it in a meaningful way. But I think we also need a really strong phase shift in how we're thinking and how we're taking care of people psychologically, and that's not on the table. And like, no one's having that conversation in politics. But because of the demands of the 21st century, which is like, as we're fusing with technology, it's, I think, extremely critical. And so even if whatever side of the political spectrum you're on gets everything they want to, we're still going to have billions of people who are lonely and depressed and without meaning. And I think that's really important to address. And so I think what we're doing is this incredible way to meet billions of people where they're at, and then provide an on-ramp to this growing world of products and services and content that can really help people with those things that government isn't providing, and the school's not providing, and maybe the home's not providing, because, you know, demands on parents are crazy, and like our kids kind of become an expression of who we are and what we value, and a lot of people don't have the means to do all this personal work on themselves. And
the time, you know, thinking about a single mother who's working, you know, a job and taking care of kids. You know, I'm an uncle, and I spend 3 hours with my niece and nephew, and I feel like I'm exhausted. I go take a nap afterwards. It's like, I don't know how my sister does it. I don't know how her husband does it, you know, and how can people take that time for themselves when they have others in their care, right? And so we need this community. We need this support system and network. And the word in the yoga world is Sangha, right? And like we in that world kind of try to cultivate again our superhuman capabilities, and we do asana and meditation and breath work and all these things, and all of it is kind of empty unless you have people going along on the journey with you, and when you run into roadblocks, be able to say, hey, I need your support. And whether that's a digital community or an app that's there to protect your brain from mental attack. Maybe that's too extreme. I think we need that Sangha. We need a digital Sangha in the future. And I hear you. And there's so much there in what you just said.
Just imagining Facebook rebranding to digital Sangha.
I mean, I saw Zuckerberg yesterday talking about people, you know, finally, maybe he's considering allowing individuals to have control over their own data and where it's shared. And I think that's a big step forward, right? And companies like yours are going to continue moving, you know, the goalposts for these larger organizations to kind of do the right thing for all of us.
That's the goal.
You know, look at wow, you just touched on so much, but there's all of these externalities of our technology use, right? These centralized hacks lead to a lack of trust in institutions. We have polarization of politics across the globe. There's a lot of rage and anger. I just saw a map of the United States, you know, 2 time periods in The Economist, showing the density of opioid deaths. I think opiate abuse has caused more deaths in the last 2 years by like 2x than heart attacks and car accidents and cancer in the United States. We're in San Francisco right now, one of the hotbeds for youth suicide, right? Like, we need to evaluate what's going on out there and find solutions, not just like cry about it, but actually do something about it.
If not now, like, when are we going to do it? It's it's this mythic heroism that's kind of called forth from all of us, because there's for every one of us, there's ways that we can make a difference in our community if we have the skills or the financial resources through companies, nonprofits. And that's what I think, if anything, gets me out of bed every day in the morning. It's like, oh my God, I have a schedule full of figuring out and harmonizing with people who are trying to like make the world a better place. And not necessarily from the like save the world perspective, but it's just like
practical.
I think it's more like, this is important. Like we don't have all the answers, and we're not going to do it ourselves. But like we need more people like jumping in the bunker so that spaceship Earth survives and thrives.
I think I'm going to end it there.
Cool.
We can do probably like 10 episodes, I'm sure. Thank you so much for doing this with me. This was really fun. I hope that you enjoyed it as well. And
I did.
I really hope that people listening, I hope this is something that you want more of. And if it's not, I'll keep creating until I figure out a way that it resonates. But obviously you can follow Andrew and Siempo on Twitter. We didn't talk about this, but Andrew hasn't posted to Instagram in 5 years. So get a load of that. I don't know if that's the platform to follow him on, but
probably Twitter.
Twitter.
Yeah. My handle there is Andrew Dunn, 2 A's. So AANDRW.
And I'll post the handles underneath, any content here, and Siempo, and just be on the lookout. There's a lot happening with this company. I think it's more than a company. It's a movement. It's so exciting for me to see where this is all going. So thank you.
Thank you. This is great.
Should we end with a deep breath?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed that episode, and I hope that you're enjoying the podcast. It's been a really fun ride so far. I just get so excited every time I meet some of these incredible people and just love sharing their stories and ideas with you all. You can learn more about the show at thelookuppodcast.com. That's THE, lookuppodcast.com. You can follow me on social media at Wark Meinstein, WARCMEINSTEIN, on both Twitter, Instagram, and Medium, and Facebook. We have a Facebook page for the show as well, The Lookup Podcast, on Facebook. So check us out. You can also subscribe to our mailing list on the website for more future updates. If there's anything from the show that you want to catch, I've posted that in the show links for you to check out. And if there's any way that I can improve, please let me know. Feel free to reach out. If you have any guest recommendations, please let me know. Other than a couple of individuals who are helping me out in the background, this is a passion project, and I'm always open to feedback and any kind of support. I want to thank Sam Palumbo and Patch Kid Music for the sound editing and the intro and outro song that he created. And I want to thank Hello There Collective for their support on my social media. You can check them out at hellotherecollective.com. All right, that's enough for me. I'm sure you're ready to go on to your next activity. Thank you for listening. And please come back again next week for another episode of the Lookup Podcast.